What's up, everybody? Grant Wise here. Welcome to the Marketing Genius Podcast. I am so excited for our episode today because we're speaking with the one and only Mr. J. Papasan, a man that needs very little introduction, I would imagine, a guy that has done some just absolutely incredible things, big part of the Keller Williams family, and somebody I'm truly honored and excited to bring on with and maybe even argue a little bit with. We were talking about before the show got started. But no, we should have just a fantastic conversation. Jay, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited. I always love to talk real estate business.
I love it. I love it. So let's dive right into this. Who is Jay Papasan? How did you get to where you are today?
Super short version. I had a career in publishing in New York before I relocated to Austin, Texas, and did a brief career as a freelance magazine writer before I took a job at Keller Williams Realty. This was in September 2nd or 3rd, 2000. So I've been there going on 19 years. And when I joined, there were about 27 employees and 6,700 agents. Today, we got a little more than 300 employees and around 165,000 agents. So it's been a bit of a rocket ride. And on that journey, I get the privilege of getting to write a number of books with Gary Keller. Our most recent one was The One Thing, but also probably more germane to this conversation, got to co-author The Millionaire Real Estate Agent and Shift, How Top Agents Tackle Tough Times, which both talk a little bit about marketing and how that, it's a lead generation game. So it's definitely always the first conversation we have.
I love it. I love it. And you are, correct me if I'm wrong, are you the VP of training at Keller Williams now? What's your current position?
That's correct. I just changed recently. Earlier this year, Gary asked me to lead additional teams. And so I lead the training team as well as the publishing team here at Keller Williams.
Just, I know this isn't about Gary, this is about you, but what is it like to work with, one of the industry elites on a day-to-day basis?
He keeps you on your toes. The guy's got a huge vision. And definitely when Wendy and my wife and I reflect on the journey of working closely with him, every time we think big, we're thinking big for our lives, he'll show us that we can think bigger. And that's probably been one of the biggest gifts of the relationship, is that he's always forcing us to hang out with him, you got to keep growing. Yes. So that's been a good journey, painful and uncomfortable at times, but definitely worthwhile.
Absolutely.
And I'll just say, I don't know. He's the only self-made billionaire I have a relationship with. I've actually met a few. I'll say he's a decent human being. He's nobody walks on water. Some people come in and everything he says, they're like writing it down. I was like, no, don't write that down. That was wrong. And that's part of my job, right? Is to do things. But so he's not perfect, but he's a really fundamentally decent human being that practices what he preaches. And that's why I'm still here.
I love it. I love it. What are your hopes for the future, at least for the departments that you can speak of from a training standpoint? What are you guys working on at Keller Williams and what are you hoping to bring to the table there?
Well, earlier this year in February, we announced that we had kind of launched our tech platform. We've been working on it for 3.5 years. Mm-hmm. And at different times that, drew outright laughter, right, to ridicule. And I'll tell you the offering, we did a lot of pictures of people running around playing soccer with their kids, talking about what the stuff would do for you. In February, we actually launched some of it. And it was a very small subset. And this last month, we launched most of it. And I'm really happy. So we've got a platform now that so far so good. We're delivering on that promise. It's been a long road. When I get excited about where we go, I was just reviewing our one of our reports, and it would track lead generation activities, how we actually onboarded leads, our conversion rates from leads to actual contact in our actual database, from that to appointment set, from appointment set to appointment kept, all the way down the transaction to closed. And 90% of the tracking is now automated. So our ability to have visibility because of the platform, I get giddy-eyed. I think about in 3 or 4 years, we already have 60,000 agents on the platform, which is a huge amount of data. I get excited because we're going to be able to see, well, how many times do you call an internet lead before they pick up the phone? I'll be able to actually see data versus just doing interviews.
Right.
Because I could interview and say, what works in marketing? And you could tell me based on your experience. But a lot of times people leave out the things that they're doing because they're grant wise or whatever, and they don't even think about what they do. It just happens automatically. But when you have it all in front of you, you can say, well, I know you said you made 4 phone calls, but what about these 3 emails?
Right.
And they're like, oh yeah, right. It just gives you a whole new data set. So I get really excited about diving deeper into the truth.
I love it. You know, a lot of agents operate on feeling too. They don't necessarily operate on data. So I feel like this is going well, or I think that, this is happening. It's like, well, the truth is.
I'm married to one. I'm a data guy, unabashedly. My wife runs a huge team, 100 million plus in sales last year.
Wow.
5 cities, big team. Definitely. It feels great. It's the conversation we have about that marketing piece, right? It's like, okay, let's track the metrics.
So talking about MBA, the $1 Million Agent, right? It's one of the greatest books, to bless the real estate industry. It's a lot of people have built their businesses, people that are with Keller and people that aren't with Keller, sing the praises of that book. What is your culture? What is your mindset around lead generation, marketing, sales? What are you guys breathing today? What is, and I heard Gary say, we went to rewrite this book and it turns out, it's basically all the same, right? It's basically the same foundation. So give me the updated version. What do you guys think today is happening with all the innovation that exists in the industry?
Gosh, all right, that's a huge question. So I think a lot of the fundamentals are still the same. Some of the big distinctions we're making, originally we were calling them prospects and then leads. Now it's leads and then contacts. We're really trying to distinguish between a lead, right, which is a name that may or may not have an interest in buying or selling real estate in any given time frame, from someone we actually have a permission-based relationship with. Mm-hmm. So if we pound leads, we have relationships with people that are contacts in our database. And so one of the big things is just a mindset shift. And we've already seen legislation in Canada, like they have to scrub their list. There is no spam there, none. And they are tracking it hard. And I don't know that that'll happen in the US, but a lot of companies are adopting a lot of that mindset just right off the bat and going to more of a permission marketing relationship. And I can tell you in our tracking, it's sometimes 5 and 6x the results. So you have a much smaller pool of, quote, leads, but because you have permission to be in a relationship with them, your conversion rates are much, much higher. And so that's a big one for us.
Permission-based how? Like you're getting double verification on opt-ins, or is it a tactical thing? Or what do you mean? What is permission-based marketing?
Just not even the tactical nature of double or single verification, right? If so many agents, like I get about, I don't know about you, every day I get an invitation to somebody's open house. I didn't ask for that. And I'm certainly not going to an open house in Arizona. I live in Austin, Texas, right? And so they got my email and they're just going to pound it.
Yep.
And that has been the attitude for a very long time. And I will tell you, I don't really need any more email in my inbox. But every now and then I'll hear about, oh, wow, I'm on the Marketing Genius. I want to subscribe to this podcast because I like it. Now I'm looking for that email. I know why it's in my inbox and I know that it represents value. I'm a lot more likely to engage with it and do something with it. So like just on a first level, when someone subscribes to what you're doing, they want your newsletter, they want your email, whatever it is, they subscribe to your video channel, you're optimizing your ability to convert. So taking the time to ask permission to get that in, that single action, yes, I want to hear this, that makes a huge jump in terms of your conversion rates.
So audience segmentation, really creating an experience for somebody and not just assuming that somebody that, maybe opted in to see an open house now wants to hear everything about everything that's going on. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's right.
Yep.
Well, now you're playing a deeper game. What I love about our platform, and I'll just say any platform that's sophisticated, you can segment your database today so that it's never going to be completely one-to-one. Like I don't have a email drip campaign just for you. Maybe I would, right? But that would be incredibly rare. But I can say, all right, I've got a group of people that I'm in relationship with that are past clients and who love golf. I can have a very specific ongoing conversation with them that's much more likely to get them to engage. Mm-hmm. So when you look at your groups, it's more than just past clients and core advocates. You can start dicing it up by, I don't know, however you choose to, right? Are these people that are in certain industries? Do they have certain interests? These are investors, whatever. And you can have multiple touch programs that overlap that are much more appropriate feeling for your audience.
Mm.
That's where the industry's going, right? Is that you want it to feel personalized, but it won't be personalized. Like that might happen with AI someday. It will feel customized to what they actually want.
Right. I mean, we call this a dynamic user experience, right? You want to create an experience for the user that is unique to them. That's not to say you need to take all of these manual actions to create that experience. There's certainly a deep level of automation that can exist that can do that. Not everybody needs to hear I'm going to talk to these people about golf, and I'm going to talk to these people about wine, and I'm going to talk to these people about supporting small business. You don't have to. It's awesome if you do, right? Definitely creates an experience. Yeah. You don't have to create that in-depth kind of level of automation and segmentation, but at least caring about what people want to hear about can go a long way. Absolutely. I mean, I know we see this in our world. I would imagine you see it in yours too.
My wife does a agent-to-agent referral newsletter once a month. And it's highly personal. And there have been times where she writes it, I'll have to write her and make sure that it was an actual marketing piece and not an email to me. And it's just, right? I mean, I'm just like, nailed it. I wasn't sure. Is this your marketing piece? Or is this, because it doesn't say agent-to-agent referral. Uh-huh. It would be, Grant, hey, I just wanted to share what I was thinking today, whatever. But it feels like a personal note. Mm-hmm. And so, like what she's done is she's connected with people on what it feels like a one-to-one basis by sharing something, but it actually transmits to a much larger group. So there's a lot of ways you can slice that up, but you're wanting to actually bring the value that people are looking for to them. And the more that you know about them, the better you can actually customize your messaging and offers to them and therefore get better results.
Do you feel like the way that the marketing is being done today, that there is almost a need for almost a role inside of an organization where there's somebody that is thinking about these things every single day? Or do you feel like a lot of what you guys are seeing today is that maybe the agent needs to take on that responsibility where it's more about community and less about commission, or a team leader or a broker? Who do you feel like inside of an organization today should be the people that are thinking about creating these experiences for people?
I think that a lot of it still needs to stay in the hands of sales, because we're not actually measuring our success by our open rates, right? Or our engagement on our social post. We're measuring our success by how many homes we sell. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, somewhere down that line, you're developing a relationship so you can satisfy real estate needs that gives us a chance to either get referrals or get direct business. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's a bunch of wasted energy and bragging rights. So I find that the best messaging often comes from salespeople. And this is what we were talking about. A lot of people want to be in one camp or the other. I'm a prospector, I just pound the phone, or I'm a marketer and I do great marketing. And it's the mix of the two. And if you only did one, I would say prospecting, because that tells you what works and then you put your money behind it. But we were debating this. It's a circular thing.
It is. They feed each other, because we were talking about this before. You said, I think prospecting first, marketing second. And I said, I think marketing first, prospecting second. And I know that I have my reasons for this, but why don't you dive into why that is your belief? I know you kind of hinted at it just a second ago. You said prospecting will tell you what you need to create, but elaborate. What do you guys mean by that?
Right now, we're 12 years into a recovering market. So right now, marketing rules. I'm sorry. There's a lot of people out there. If you get the right messaging, people can make the dynamics of their marketing spend work within their commission income. During the last market, right, which was a very deep recession, if people were spending dumb marketing dollars, they were going out of business. Mm-hmm. So the way to have smart marketing dollars is actually be having conversations with people. All of our touch programs in the updated book begin and end with, if you only did one thing, call your past clients 4 times a year. Not easy to do, but it's definitely doable. But you make that comment and you're always talking to them, because if you're always talking to the people who actually are going to do real estate with you, you'll know what they're actually interested in. When you know what they're interested in, you can then make marketing offers to them that they will respond to. Mm-hmm. And basically, that 200 past clients or whatever that number is for you, you can make a really safe bet that using just a tiny amount of metrics or even blind postcards, it worked for them. I'm going to now widen my net.
Mm-hmm.
And the odds are much better. But at the same time, I could call you, right? You're on my past client list. I could say, hey, did you get my newsletter I sent this week? I wanted to call your attention to this article about homes in your neighborhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's prospecting following marketing. Gives them a reason to open their email. The two work really well together.
Absolutely.
Right? An open house is nothing without marketing.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have a sign in the yard. You got to have directional signs everywhere. You want to post it. You want to do an open house blitz, and that's ideal. That optimizes that prospecting opportunity through marketing. So I like to think of them as always working in concert, and they're always stronger together.
I agree. I think that we live in it today where I'm probably drawing a line in distincting. When I think of prospecting, I think of cold outreach activities, which is what it seems like a lot of the industry has been pushing. So cold calling or cold door knocking or cold mail. I do not believe that today is one of the best things that you can do to grow a business. I think it's something that a lot of people do and a lot of people are good at. And then I think it's something that a lot of people don't want to do and a lot of people aren't very good at. I think that warm prospecting, however, which is what, I believe that you're describing, I think warm prospecting makes so much sense when somebody opts into maybe a marketing campaign that is followed by a piece of direct mail. We've got reticular activation that's kicked in, right? So now I've subscribed to something that you might be offering, and then I'm seeing a piece of your mail. I create a distinction, a connection. But if 94% of an industry is calling me every day, I'm probably going to pay attention to the one or two or three people that did just a little bit differently, got my attention just a little bit differently. So my line of thought might come from just trying to stand out and be different in a really, really kind of noisy marketplace, which is something we have to do.
I agree. And I would say even some cold prospectors know how to stand out. I know my wife and I, we've had, we call them OSAs instead of the outbound sales agents on our team. And I kept saying, can we just find someone with a British accent or like an Irish accent, right? And, what we found is actually a lot of times females had higher conversion rates than males. Because a lot of times you go to these call centers and it's a bunch of frat guys, right? They're fine doing that job. They're competing, right? They've got that whole thing going on. Yeah. And then the one female, voice out of 40 calling that expired actually stands out. So standing out is important in any endeavor, marketing or prospecting. Mm-hmm. I think of prospecting as simply one-to-one or one-to-many, but it's you in person. So you're spending your time versus other resources to get the lead. Marketing happens while you're asleep. Prospecting doesn't happen unless you show up. So events, client appreciation events, or just, hey, I'm doing a pumpkin patch in this neighborhood and I might meet total strangers. All of those are prospecting activities. I personally lean towards the warm ones because I'm kind of an introvert. Mm-hmm. I don't like meeting strangers. I like meeting people I know, right? But if you have the skills and the personality, you can do cold prospect. You can go door knock, mm-hmm. or you can cold call. And I know people who kill it. I mean, huge businesses from that. So, but I will say the colder the prospecting, the more skills you need to have. And in this day and age, you better be scrubbing your list or somebody's going to get into a class action lawsuit because the do not call list, man, there's some big numbers being thrown around. Some of the lawsuits we've seen against cold prospecting organizations have been big. Yeah, and it's not like even, we were looking at, our software and programming some of those types of tools and technology, and it's almost like, you're going to put a lot of dev time into creating platform that's going to be illegal here very soon, it seems like. It's definitely a very interesting world. But I do agree with you unequivocally that we always tell people that you've got to know who your market is. You got to know who your customer is. If you don't know who that is, the person that works with everyone works with no one. So if you don't know who you're talking to, it's going to be very difficult to generate the types of customers that you're hoping to. And you don't usually gain that insight unless you are having conversations with your prospects or your customers or the people that you hope to be doing business with. And there's a lot of ways that you can have that conversation, whether it's one-to-one or one-to-many, whether you're picking up the phone and calling somebody or you're communicating with people through social channels. So I do agree with you there. You do have to know who your prospect is. You have to know what they want before you can create community-based content that engages them in specific ways, before your mail is going to make any sense, before your emails are going to get opened. The more that you can curate your content to be very personalized, even if it is automated,
you do need to know what their problems are, what their pain points are, what they're hoping for, what they're looking for, et cetera. So I do agree with you there. It sounds like
piggyback right on that, because we agree completely on that. If you know your audience, that's half the battle. I think you also have to understand what your value proposition is. We recently did a presentation, Gary and I, where we kind of broke it down into kind of 6 unique things that we do. And our industry historically has been about providing information. But you start with information. You then educate people based on the information you just gave them. You offer actual advice because we're fiduciaries. Based on that advice, we give people services that we actually provide for them. We connect them to our vendors who provide those services. And at the highest level, we all know people who have like affinity groups, right? When you're a part of my past client club or whatever that is, they get some special membership. And what we're seeing today is that different entities, right? So much of the information that we used to provide is now available. Like the last 3 months, I can't tell you how many top listing agents I've talked to, and they say sign calls are down. Why are sign calls down? Consumers aren't curious about home prices anymore. They go get his estimate. Even though we all know that could be pretty off, they just want to have a general sense.
They just want to scratch an itch. They don't really care if it's accurate. It's not, and they don't even know if it's inaccurate, right? That's an industry standard. It's not really the consumers. Zillow has built that trust. I mean, they've just done a really good job at doing those types of things.
So they can either go to the MLS or to Zillow or whatever. They can get what they used to not be able to get for free. And so our thing is look at those 6 categories, right? And say, what is actually now available in a commodity, and where can I go deeper and offer something uniquely valuable? Whether it be information, education, advice, services, connections to my service providers, or some sort of group that they get to be a part of. The people who think that through and know their audience, they're winning the game every single time because they know who they're talking to and they know what they actually have of value to offer them. And that's a very high conversion rate activity right there, matching those two pieces of information together.
From a strategic standpoint, how do you feel that the real estate agent can best, quote unquote, like quote, serve their community today? And how does that transpire into maybe more relationships or more business or whatever, what have you? How do you guys feel like service really helps somebody grow?
I think that right now, to differentiate ourselves, we have to go deeper. Like I want the agents on our team, I want them looking at the inventory. When someone says I have a house to sell for, at 123 Garden Lane, I want our people to say, oh, I've looked at 4 houses in that neighborhood in the last month. Tell me about your home. Where is it? Like we have the ability, unlike any national provider, to have boots on the ground and actually have real insights that today are still not available. I can remember looking at my first investment properties with a guy named Bob Guest, and we stopped on the sidewalk outside, and he pointed out where the architect had left his initials in the sidewalk. And he said, the architect for this house was so-and-so, so-and-so, built about half the homes in the subdivision, and I can draw the floor plan right now for you before we go in. And I remember being so impressed by that because he actually knew this neighborhood all the way down to details that you were never going to find anywhere else. And I think as service providers, we need to first show that we have the deepest information available because we can be there firsthand. If we're just looking stuff up online, we're actually not doing much of a service for people. We've got to have a deeper market knowledge. We have to understand the direction the market is or isn't moving. Are we headed towards or heading away from a buyer's market? What does that mean for you as a buyer or seller? We can advise them, and then we can offer services based on that advice. We interviewed people just last week at our big event. One guy who's offering, basically iBuyer services. He used to say, if I can't sell your home, it was a guaranteed sale, which is a great way to get to the table. Now he just found a certain segment of people who were like, I inherited the home. I just want you to buy it. I don't want you to try to sell it. I just want you to buy it. So he created that. He had to get a huge line of credit to do it, but he's actually serving people. He's a realtor. He has to tell them, you are taking a haircut with this price. Are you cool with that? And they're like, sure. Okay. That's the service. Some people don't want to maximize their price. They want to maximize their speed. There are other people, Christy Smith in Indianapolis, she's got a concierge program where she will go in, and what that means is you are overwhelmed already. I will help you rehab your house. And they will go in and control all of the rehab even finance it on behalf of their customers so that they can maximize their sales price. So there are services that agents are offering that are very, very difficult for anyone else to match, and they make them stand out in the market. So those are really high-end examples. I don't care what it is. Maybe you make homemade lollipops. Figure out what you can provide that no one else can, and make sure that your clients know that you can provide this service. Maybe you're the condo queen or you're the duplex king. I don't care. Figure out how to position yourself so that you have unique information, education, services to offer your clients.
Do you feel like the more you know who your customer is and what they want, the easier it is to create that value proposition?
Yeah, they for your most desired client, right? Your ideal client. And that then informs you where you send your lead generation. The more generic it is, the more likely it is to go over broad territory. But I would tell you, I'm trying to think of the guy's name in Philadelphia. He's one of the highest volume guys in the nation. All he does is condos. Never branched out. He just does condos, and he lists whole buildings. And the guy's absolutely knocking it out of the park and has been doing it for close to 2 decades. And so you can get very narrow in your value proposition and still have a huge opportunity. But because you are the golf course, expert, or the retirement, like now you've dominated this market, where else can you go that has a similar need for your value proposition? And that's how you figure it out.
What do you guys feel are some of the greatest resources today for maybe generating leads, self-generating leads, buying leads? What are some of your theology on these topics? What do you guys believe about lead generation right now?
Well, it's your number one job. Doesn't matter how good of an agent you are. If you're not doing lead generation, nobody's going to know. You'll service, your 9 friends, aunts, uncles, and cousins, and then you'll be out of business. That's very typical storyline. People who are not investing in lead generation and not committing themselves to it on a regular basis tend to fall out of the industry at a disproportionate rate. So first off, it's your job number one, and embrace it and fall in love with it, or get out of the business, because you will get out of the business.
What systems do you need to have to support those lead generation efforts? Because lead gen on its own is a frivolous act. It's not going to do you any good. What do you need to do as well as generate leads? What do you have to support those leads?
The first tool you need is something that is going to be a database. I don't really care what it is. We built one from the ground up called Command, or you can have a box with 3x5 index cards. I don't care. But if you're not working from a database, which means I know who I'm talking to, when I talk to them, and when I need to talk to them again, and that can be as elaborate literally as writing it down in pencil on a notebook card, or programming it into a very complex CRM that's going to automate. Doesn't matter. But that as a fundamental basic piece of lead generation is huge. So that's kind of where I start with that. Everything after that is incidental. We can play with Google AdWords and figure out which messages have the highest response rates and then augment them. There's lots of tactical things. You got to have a database, and that's the foundation of your business. And at the end of the day, when you sell your business, I'm going to buy it based on how much predictable revenue I can get from your database. There's no other reason to buy your business, because otherwise it's just your brand. And that brand dies because most of our agents are branded around their name, not around what they do. So they have a database, and how well they've been able to get repeat and referral business will be the value of their business when they decide to get out. So that to me is far and above the most important tool that everybody should have.
When you start looking into this, data-driven businesses, people that are like you and I that are looking at numbers that are very, very important, what do you feel are some of the most important numbers when it comes to maybe client acquisition or these different types of things that agents should be tracking that maybe they aren't tracking today? What are some of the most important metrics that somebody should look at when they're building a business?
Okay. In the very beginning, just lead gen time, right? If you're new to the business and you are absolutely, you don't have an assistant, maybe you have a service that will do contract close for you. Tracking all that stuff is a job you can't afford to employ yourself for, because you need to be lead generating. So just block time and do it every day. And if you want to take another step, then track the number of contacts you made, whether it be marketing efforts or prospecting efforts or both. So you track your time, then you track your activities. And Then as you earn the right to have an admin, like your first admin, they're just taking all the paperwork so you can do more lead gen, more negotiation, more showings, right? The stuff that generates revenue. Your second admin is probably coming in to help you organize your marketing, right? Who's pulling together your listing stuff whenever you take a listing? Who's launching your touch program when you get an internet lead? All of this is probably someone or a system, but that comes later. So I think in the very beginning, if you're just tracking one thing, somehow track your lead gen timer activities, because everything else comes from that, but it's usually earned. And if you don't have an admin, you don't need to be tracking all of that stuff. You just need to be doing it.
We believe as a company that you shouldn't buy leads, you should buy customers. I can travel all over the world and I can ask agent to agent to agent to agent, how much does it cost you to get a customer? And less than 1% of those people would be able to tell me the answer. And I believe that agents, whether you're spending your time or you're spending your money, you should know what number it's going to take to get you to your desired result. So if you are prospecting, if you're spending your time to get customers because you don't have the money to invest, how many hours are you going to spend down to the minute second? How much time total must you invest before you get a customer? Track that activity, because it will tell you how much time you need to take again. If it takes you 42 hours, 30 minutes, and 60 seconds or 50 seconds to get a customer, guess how much it's going to take you to get your next customer?
Yep.
Your business is this pool of data that so many agents either aren't informed on, don't know how to calculate, or weren't told to pay attention to. When most businesses have this blueprint already built into it that will tell you how to get to the next activity or to the next action. If you buy leads or you buy customers, it's the exact same. It will tell you that same way.
I love that. Gary's first piece of advice, he's told the story a bunch, was, I think it was like Tom Hopkins or something, like old time listing guy, basically said, for every 100 people you have a real estate conversation with, you'll sell one house. And there was no science behind that. The guy didn't offer any footnotes to prove it, but Gary just thought it was true. So he just said, look, I want to sell 18 houses. So how many conversations, what you're going for is predictable in time and predictable in expense. If I'm spending money on Facebook ads, how many dollars do I have to spend in order to earn a commission? And it better be less than the commission, right? So otherwise it doesn't make sense. But if you're not tracking that at some point, you're just going to mess up. So I totally agree with everything you said.
I love it, man. I know you're a really busy guy, and I want to go ahead and let you get off here. I appreciate you stopping by and having a conversation with us. It was a good one. Hopefully, if you guys are listening to this, you were able to glean some pieces of information. We're going to try and catch up with Jay again later, because I got some more data-driven questions I'm curious to get the answer to, especially knowing how much data he has access to. I definitely have some curiosity.
We'll do it again. We'll do it again. If you can't tell, I love talking about this stuff. I get really geeky on it, and we can go really deep if you need to.
Yeah, what we need to do is we need to have maybe a joint class or a joint webinar where we dive into the data that, a lot of the things that you guys are interested, that you're learning now that you have access to so much information, like you were talking about earlier in the podcast. I'd love to do that with you. Maybe we can coordinate that.
I love that. And thank you so much for sharing me with your audience, and thanks for doing what you do.
Yeah. Hey, Jay, what is the single greatest way, if somebody wanted to follow you after they listen to this podcast, what's the greatest way for them to get in touch with you?
Luckily, my name, Jay Papasan, I'm the only one in the United States. So if they type Jay Papasan, it's all A's, Papasan, in Google, they're going to find my Instagram, my Facebook, my LinkedIn, my website. Pretty easy to find, because I didn't have to go by the name. That was just, God gave me a nice marketing name.
There we go.
They reach out. I do monitor those sites, or they can go check out theonething.com, which is our main hub. And there's everything about me there that they need to contact me as well.
Love that, guys. We'll make sure that we link that up in the show notes. Thank you again, Jay, for stopping by. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning into the Marketing Genius podcast. Continue to listen to us on the website. Rate us on iTunes, Google Play. We will see you on the next episode. Peace.